that divorce completely destabilized me to where I cashed out my 401k. I ended up paying for where we were living on my own for a while. I had to move internationally when I wasn't expecting to. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after we split. And it's like, I kind of think about how being the responsible one and working hard and climbing the ladder and having a savings that was not really growing. It's kind of like I was living at the top of my means. And I saw like how that really wasn't stability, that a few things happened and then I was like wiped out money. And I had never been in a situation where I needed help. I never asked my parents for help. And that was the one time my mom said, "Do you need me to pay your last month's rent so you can move out and move back to California, live with us, restabilize yourself?"
Hello, Puteros Cash Libres. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm extremely honored to have such a powerhouse with us. Mariela de la Mora, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Lucy. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like we get to share stories that you didn't even know that I have about like how I got started. So I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, for context, Mariela and I met a couple of years ago. So, we pretty much follow the same people. We are friends with the same people, and we really never connected. But what drew me to Mariela was her story on how she was building a business as a single mom. And so, Mariela, for the listener that just hears your name for the first time, share a little bit about your story. How did you grow up, and what was your relationship with money?
Yes. So my parents both immigrated from Mexico as teenagers, and my grandfathers were farm workers. And as the eldest daughter, I have two younger sisters, very much grew up with my parents' immigration story and like my grandfather's immigration story. So like being so aware of how much they were making, how, 50 cents an hour working in the fields, like 7 days a week, decades to bring the family to America. And when you grow up like that and hearing like life is hard, life is expensive, you need to save your money, uno nunca sabe, you don't know, like saving, 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 saving for enjoyment later. So much of that was drilled into my head, which actually produced me being like a very, I would say, typical eldest daughter, like achieving in school, going to college, getting two master's degrees, climbing the corporate ladder, saving all my money, but also not knowing what to do with my money besides putting it in a 401k. And I think looking back, I can look at things like the fact that I saved my money as a child in case my parents couldn't pay the mortgage. Like things like that. It's almost like growing up with like a hypervigilance around money, around like even I can't enjoy it as a child because like my parents might need it and this is selfish. I think so much of that just like made me kind of grow up and was like, what the path? Like, I guess I just have to be exceptional and I have to work really hard and I can't enjoy my money and I need to save it, but I don't really know what to do with it. So I think that's like a lot of what shaped me around like, wait a minute, but like, are people, I didn't really start to ask those questions until later of like, do I want to just have what my parents had or do I want to build more? Because they had to work until their mid 60s to retire. And now they don't really have they have enough, but it was just so different. I feel like that's a lot of like my story is kind of being like, do I want to just recreate what they've created or does that world even exist anymore? What do I want for my daughter, especially becoming a single parent? I had to just ask myself such deeper questions. So I think that is all what we're going to talk about today, but I think that that's been just such a learning curve of like what were you modeled? Is that still like the case now? Do we live in a world now where you can just work at the same job and retire until your 60s and your 401k and your pension is going to take care of you? And that's all what the last few years have really taught me is like, okay, so what is the path now?
Yeah, and you have such a powerful story as the eldest daughter, and you talk about savings. This is very common, by the way. I just want to normalize that a lot of people might feel like, I don't know what to do with my money, or am I the only one that is doing this or not doing this? But it's very, very common. You touch on something that I see so often with my own clients who are the eldest daughters, where they are postponing the joy. We have to be like, no, hold on, like, but you also deserve to pay yourself. And I
Yeah.
think that is such a important conversation to have because it is so normal. In fact, more normal than we think. Now, You
Yeah.
mentioned about having savings. How does that look like for you? Because for some people, saving means having the money at home. For other people, having it in a bank, regular bank account. For other people, means literally having it under the colchón. So, what does that look for you?
Now, very different. I think about when I was a kid, I had it, like, in cash in a little cajita, like, in a little box in my room with drawings on it and stuff, and I was like yeah, I had $525 saved as a child, which was ridiculous for a child, so I was like, that I was the saver. You couldn't teach me. I learned how to save. Now, it's funny because, like, I never I never would have thought this, but, like, I resaved, like, I had to almost, like, start over, which maybe we'll talk about in this episode of, like, having the savings, how I had to start over financially, but now it's an investment account. So, my investment account hit 6 figures towards the end of last year, which I never thought I would say as someone who was late. So I didn't even start for everyone listening, I didn't even start investing until after 40. And I invested, I think initially like 50, maybe like 56,000 or something like that. And I put a little bit more in there over time, but like over the last like 2.5 years, it's gotten to that. And my daughter, I opened up a trust fund for her, UTMA. I opened up one for her at the end of 2023 or beginning of 20, I think it was 2024. It hit like over $10,000 at the end of last year. And I just put a little bit in there and I didn't even realize I started to pay her through my business as well. And her checks went into her account. And I just sobbed like the day that I opened the accounts. I sobbed the day that they hit six figures and 10K because there was something in there about no matter what happens to me, her money is gonna grow. No matter what happens to me, she has my investment accounts, they're gonna be in her name. Like, so there's just so much around like the relief of being a single mom and being like, I have to think beyond what I can make month to month. I have to think about how would I take care of my child if anything happened, you know?
So first of all, congratulations. She has a trust. So that's why the debtor will receive the money. So the debtor is not a beneficiary on those accounts. Just for you guys like that are listening, don't do that. That's not okay.
Mm.
Because your child needs to be legally 18 or 21, depending on where they live, to inherit the money. But I love the proactiveness on how you just thinking ahead, and what a beautiful gift of allowing your daughter to have money working for her so she doesn't feel the same way you did.
Yeah, and just me knowing that even if I don't add any more money to it, like, when you start to do the calculations, it's like, "Oh my gosh," like, everybody should open up an account like this for their child, for their niece or nephew, because it doesn't take much for it to be hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time they're 18 and millions when they retire. I forget the math for hers, but it's something like 6 or $7 million, even if I never added any more money to it, which is wild. Like, I think, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had known this sooner." And I thought it was so complicated. I thought that I needed to learn about the stock market and how to pick a stock and all of this. And just, I think that that's also part of what keeps us from investing. That's part of what scared me from doing it for a long time. It made me think I needed to hire a financial investor or that it was too risky because when you grow up seeing your abuelita store money in cash under the mattress in walls in the house. That's what my abuelita did. When she died, we found money in the house, like more of it in different places. You kind of grow up being like, you can't trust banks or you can't trust. And so investment accounts almost seem like, oh, you're gambling with your money. I would hear things like that. So it was so scary for me to do that. But it's kind of like you look around and you're like, well, people are investing. Like, what do they know that I don't know? And that is where Lucy helped me to get over my fear. And I remember the day that I set the account up, you said, you know, it can feel really scary, like to just invest money. I would say put $20 in there. And I was like, $20 just feels like, why would I even just put $20? You're like, just trust me, just put $20 because you're going to watch it and it's not going to feel as scary like you were an investor at the $20. And then I watched the $20 and I think like the next day I put like $200 and then I put like $1,000 and then I moved like the whole K I had. And you knew something that like other people didn't know, which is like how unsafe it can feel to move your money into an investment account when you feel like, yeah. So that changed my life. Like that was how I started to invest.
Thank you for mentioning that. So you fit the money personality that I'm going to be talking a lot throughout the book.
Yeah.
My super saver is the one that is always planning for the worst.
Yeah.
that type of money personality is a disservice to tell that person to just move all of your money at once because our nervous system isn't ready for that.
Yeah.
You have so much of that generational financial struggles that even if you want to break up with them, it's hard
Yeah.
to do it that way. And let's actually use the analogy of the breakup. When you're ready to break up, you don't just show up and say, "Ya no quiero nada contigo." You're actually in about for months, weeks, sometimes years, and in your head, you're like, "Here's what I'm gonna say. Here's how I'm gonna go and react." But also, what happens if they react or she reacts this way? Like you start planning for all of these. So
Yes.
with money, we can tell someone, "Yeah, just move all of your money." Como dicen,
Mhm.
like, quítale Band-Aid and move on. It's like, no, because the nervous system remembers the struggles that our abuelitas had, our moms, the moments when our parents came and say, no tengo dinero, préstame de tu guardadito. And so all of that feels very, very much wrong to have someone. And I work with clients that ended up coming to me because elsewhere they were told, just move it or you're making a mistake. And it's like, no, that's the wrong approach to help someone with this
Yeah.
money. And so the account that Mariela is talking about was a high yield savings, where I just say, hey, just move your money here. This is like the first stepping stone, and it's not going to be the last one. So she ended up actually working with another money coach who helped her with the investments. But I want to bring it back, Mariela, because I'm so proud of you and everything that you built throughout the time that I've known you, which I feel like is now 5 years. Let's talk about how do you recommend someone, or maybe talk a little bit about your story on how you were able to just transition from being married to now having your own accounts? What was the process like for you?
Yeah, so I've actually been married twice, and the first time I was married, we had joint everything. I changed my last name, we blended all of our accounts, I didn't have any of my own accounts. I think when I got divorced both times, I actually ended up less financially well off, where I ended up like paying for the divorce, giving away like a bunch of my stuff, being the one to pay for like our house or our housing by myself for a while, like after the split. And I think that it kind of taught me like I don't want to be so easily destabilized. And so I feel like the transition for me was like with my second divorce to my daughter's dad. So we were married. I lived in London. Like I think in that one I kept like my own separate accounts and things just in case. It was like I still had my own, but it still cost me. Like that divorce completely destabilized me to where I cashed out my 401k. I ended up paying for where we were living on my own for a while. I had to move internationally when I wasn't expecting to. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after we split. And it's like, I kind of think about how being the responsible one and working hard and climbing the ladder and having a savings that was not really growing. It's kind of like I was living at the top of my means. And I saw like how that really wasn't stability, that a few things happened. And then I was like wiped out money. And I had never been in a situation where I needed help. I never asked my parents for help. And that was the one time my mom said, do you need me to pay your last month's rent so you can move out and move back to California, live with us, restabilize yourself? So, me having to start from 0 really made me think intentionally of like, "Am I restarting? Am I gonna, save my money, but then what?" So, that's really what happened is I spent several years rebuilding my savings through my job, working remotely, and then saying, "Okay, if I was gonna rebuild again, like, how could I do this where my money is growing?" And so I really started looking into investing as soon as my daughter was born. But I didn't know how to do it. It felt complicated to me. I was scared to do it, and my money represented my safety. And I think that's something that if you grew up without a lot of money or if you ever were I grew up without a lot of money and was wiped out financially. I was so scared of losing my safety because I saw that account as I'm safe as long as that money is in the bank. And that's what made it so scary, but that's also what made me hold on to that money for literally years and not invest it. So it's like I started trying to get information. I remember joining a group coaching program in 2020, but then they were teaching us about stocks and it overwhelmed me and I still didn't invest. So this is kind of what taught me like you can have information, but like, is it information that I need or is it safety or is it the right information? Did I need to learn about stocks? And so I kept trying to solve the problem. Now I look back, I was trying to solve this problem for years. And it really wasn't until we had a conversation and you were just like, okay, you don't need to move the whole thing over. You don't necessarily, and me learning, like, you don't have to learn about the whole stock market. You can have a diversified fund. I have most of my money in the S&P 500. It doesn't require me to know about the stock market. It removed all of the reasons that I was terrified to let go of, like, my nest egg, like my safety that I had to work so hard to rebuild.
Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps so much. Like I'm getting excited for you because I see the transformation. Like literally, I'm like, oh, this is why I love the power of investing. For the people that keep saying it's so complicated, I always invite them to reframe it as it's revolutionary.
It is. Gosh.
You want to touch on that?
Yeah, it's not it doesn't I think the thing is we think we have to have, like, a doctorate level knowledge to get started, and you don't. And I think it seems that way, right? Like, "Oh, you need to know about stocks," and, like, you hear about all these terms, but, like, in reality, I just needed to know, number 1, you could open up an investment account, pick a diversified way to essentially established, like, the risk isn't so risky. I'm an investor. Is that in the S&P 500, it's like diversified risk because you're investing in the top 500 companies in the world. It leans a little more heavy towards like the top 10 to 20. So basically, you could never really lose your money long term because that would mean the entire world economy would crash. And I feel like if somebody had just explained that to me, to be like, you don't need to know, you don't need to pick stocks. You just need to put it in an account where you don't need to touch it necessarily. Like, you don't want to put your whole life savings in there and then need it to pull money for a house. But instead of my money sitting in an account where it was actually depreciating every year because as inflation goes up, your money basically is not as valuable. If someone had just said, you can open up an account and do it in like less than 30 minutes, I wouldn't have believed you. But that actually wound up being what happened was I opened up an account, moved a little bit of money in and then a little more and a little more into the S&P 500, and then I just watched it. And I think I put it in at a time where like stocks were going up. I mean, it could have been either way. But because it went up, it was something like watching $200 become like $240 that I was like, "Oh my gosh, if I had put $2,000 in there yesterday, it would have been $400." And there was just the possibility, and I think I needed to see it to feel safe in my body doing it. But it
Yeah,
wasn't as
and that's
complicated as
what
I thought.
people need. I always say find the evidence, and you teach this too throughout your programs, I'm sure. Like, find the evidence that is going to
Yes.
help you just shift the mindset into it's possible for me. And now,
Yeah.
because of you, and because of you taking that one action, you
Yeah.
literally have changed the trajectory of your daughter, but also you have created safety. So now, as an investor,
Yeah.
Maria, I want to ask you, how are you creating safety?
Oof. So I feel I feel like that's had to shift dramatically. I'm actually in a season of reestablishing what that's like. So I think that one first of all, being an investor helped me create safety by knowing that my money is growing. Granted, it doesn't grow every month. Since October to now, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, but just knowing like it's okay, it's in there for the long run. Part of it is like part of how I've created safety is shifting the dependency on financial safety away from me and my working hours or me and my business success, because that made me feel a very like almost a very anxious attachment to my business of like I'm only safe if my business is making money, and that the only way I can make money is if my business makes money. So I think part of that has shifted to be like, no, I can make money in other ways. My money can make money for me. I just clicked something in my brain. Then I think what it made me shift priorities, I'm actually in a season now and I'll talk a little bit about it, is it made me think like, okay, if I could do it over, I would have reduced my cost of living, increased my earning potential, and just moved as much money as possible into investments. I didn't do that before. Obviously, I started in my 40s as an investor, but now it's really made me think like I need to protect my clarity, like my ability to make money. So that means me feeling safe, feeling resourced, me having access to my creativity, me feeling supported as a mom. Because if I am tapped out, if I'm wiped out, if I don't feel safe, if I'm not resourced, if I'm not supported, I'm the creator. As an entrepreneur, I'm the creator of money. And even if I wasn't an entrepreneur, I'm still the creator. I kind of think like that's kind of my number one job is to like make sure that I am resourced and supported, because that's what's going to help me increase my earning potential so that I can put more money away so that I don't have to work at a certain point. I don't have that yet. Like, I'm not to that hitting like that fire like amount, whatever, but that's my goal. So I feel like that's more what it is like protect my ability to think, to make decisions, to make money so that I can invest, so that I can become work optional. Like that's what gives me safety, but like I have to take care of myself because
Yeah,
there's times that I haven't.
I
So,
so much. And the safety that we're seeking so much always comes within. I mean, even people that have, thousands of millions of dollars, like they still don't feel safe with money because they still have the attachment to it versus people that
yeah.
and like I create my own money. And throughout the years, I have watched you create your own money, but also I love how you are honoring the season of your life where you're like, hold on, maybe I need to do something a little bit different. So I don't know if
Yeah.
you're comfortable sharing what you're doing
Yeah.
now. Like, did you ended
Yes.
up in consulting? Are you back in a 9 to 5? How does that look like for you now?
No, so it's I love that we're having this conversation now because I've actually had to re-ask myself different questions about financial security and what is my version of success. So what I my most like 4 years ago, my daughter and I lived in Oregon and then we moved back to San Francisco when she started kindergarten because at that time I had lived in like a low cost of living area. I was able to build my almost like rebuild my nervous system safety so I can build my business because it's really hard for me as a single mom to think expansively when I feel like, oh my gosh, all my money is just bleeding out everywhere. I'm tired. And so I think I needed to go reduce my cost of living, go be in the trees, go live out the pandemic in this city, which was beautiful. And it's exactly what I needed. So I doubled my income while I was living in Oregon. I had a hard time and then I was able to help myself make more money. But then after that, I was like, well, I now am very lonely. I don't have support. It was just really hard for me to not have family support. So then again, I kept asking, like, what do I need in order to continue to expand? It's like I could continue to live there and I think it would be fine, but I was just really homesick. I was really lonely. My daughter was 5. And I decided to move back and increase my cost of living, but my daughter no longer had daycare. So I kind of kept it around the same. Now, what I've noticed is I've maintained in my business, but I also hit burnout for a year and a half. And that scared me because I saw that when I burnt out, I made drastically less money. And I was like, am I really safe here in this city that in San Francisco, it's one of the highest cost of living in the entire United States. Rent has gone up like by 60% in the last couple of years. So what happened last week was I'm not a homeowner here. All homes are here like at least 1.5 million for like a starter home, right? And so I kind of knew like even if I could be a homeowner here, I just don't know that I want that to be my goal. I don't know that I would want my money going to $1,000 a month mortgage, right? So last week I got notice from my landlord. He was increasing the rent again. This time it was by another $1,000. Like I am in a really high rent. The rent is crazy in San Francisco. There's a
And
lot of
you're sending his kids to college.
yeah. And so I'm like, do I want that to be my goal? Like, could I make that extra $1,000 work? Yeah. Is it going to be comfortable? It's just like, I just kind of like, I just don't know that I want that to be my goal of like living in San Francisco. Like, I love where I live. I love that I live near my parents. It's such a hard trade off. They pick her up from school every day. My sisters live across the bay. And this was why I came back 4 years ago. But now I had to ask myself a different question. My daughter is 9. She's a little more independent. I've noticed that I haven't been able to contribute to my investment accounts or her investment accounts as much as I have wanted to in the last 2 years, especially when I hit burnout. And I had to say, what is this path? Am I just working really hard to like afford a life that looks good on paper, but like I'm not actually contributing to my investment accounts and her investment accounts and just having time. And so I had to make the hard decision of like, now we're leaving San Francisco. My goal is to reduce my cost of living, but still increase my support in other ways. So we're considering Mexico City. We're considering like, do we go to San Diego or somewhere? But I've really had to look at like, I still have to be resourced, but I also just don't want to live in a high cost of living city because I'd rather go focus on making money in a place that doesn't require me to also be spending so much money just to exist. And that's hard because my life looks a certain way on paper and it is. And it's almost like I proved to myself, like, oh, I can live this life in San Francisco that requires 2-parent income, but I also am not contributing to my
Yeah.
actual financial freedom. So it's kind of all like false. Like it's like maybe if I hadn't learned this, I would have been like, no, I'm successful because I live in this condo with a beautiful view and I drive a Tesla and I can take my daughter on vacations. But I'm like, yeah, but is your money growing? And so it is, but I'm not adding more to it. And that's a problem for me. If I'm not adding more money to it, it's a problem. So
And I think you have the right idea of prioritizing not just the now. Like, I mean, none of us will argue or get upset if we drive a nice car, if we look good, if we eat good, if we
mhm,
go on vacation like that. That's part of the joy of today, but also planning for the joy of tomorrow, right? Because
yeah.
tomorrow, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be blind. Like, say that.
You're like, what?
Recording a podcast, trying to be like, hold on, let me find out
You're like,
because that's not gonna work for me.
yeah.
I just love how intentional you are about building your cash libre era, which is essentially what I want all of us to have. And I just love that. And also Mexico City is a high income like area, but or high expense area. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah,
But
like
also
for Mexico for sure.
earning, I'm assuming like US dollars, which is essential how you're able to make the move because so many people from there they're like I can't afford rent, but
Yeah.
when you earn with US dollars,
Yes.
it's a little bit different. Now, as you were saying this, I started thinking about your daughter.
Mhm.
You or your daughter become dual citizens yet?
That's next on our list. I just talked to my parents about this. Yesterday, my dad found his birth certificate, and I was like, I don't know if we're going to stay there forever. We're treating it like a semester. What if she goes for the fall semester and we just try it on? But I'm like, well, why not? So that is what I'm going to do. We're going to get like Mexican dual citizenship. I think I have to get it first and then she can get it to just expand our options. And I realize like how privileged it is, and I know that there's a whole thing in Mexico City about, like, people moving back and all of that, so I think, like, I'm also wanting to go back consciously and be like, "I'm not gonna go pay in super inflated rent." I know it's already inflated, but there's almost, like, American prices and then, like, Mexican prices for, like, what they would be willing to pay, so I think I'm like, I'm not trying to go ham going there on spending, that's kind of the whole point, but that's really the goal is, like, I just wanna buy myself some time to just say, like, do I want to stay here long term? I want to go ground my nervous system. I want to walk, not have a car. That's going to be such a different life from like America. You have to drive everywhere and it's traffic. And I just want to try it on and see because I think my nervous system could use a season where it just feels more calm and more grounded and where I can have a big month and not feel like okay, well, you better keep going because that's kinda what it feels like right now is, like, my business is still up and down, as businesses are, but when I have a good month, I don't immediately say, "Oh, you're good." I'm like, "Okay, well, keep going. More of that because look at where you live." And I don't like that feeling. I'd rather build what's next for me and for us and for the business from a place of, like, abundance and spaciousness, which I don't feel here. And that's been a really, really hard decision.
Yeah, but it's also a decision that, I mean, as you're saying this, I'm already thinking like you already have a diversified portfolio in the US,
Yeah.
but you could also have a diversified portfolio in Mexico by
Mm.
participating in the Mexican US stock market and the Mexican
Mm.
economy, because you will have access to both. And that is what I'm calling geographical freedom, which is something that
Okay.
we all needed. Like, well,
Yeah.
like if we both of us like move, and I'm learning this by the way, as I'm like on journey, I think one day I started thinking about how does wealthy people actually think about expansion, right?
Yeah.
So they obviously max everything here in the US, but eventually they have to start going elsewhere. And a lot of people might say, yeah, that's horrible. They go and take, homes and whatever. Like we can argue that, but also I
Yeah.
will say the opportunities are out there for everyone. There's people that complain and there's people that learn and take action. And that's a big differentiator. Like I'm not all about like, yeah, go take people's houses because I think that's not right. But also like
Yeah.
we both have access to any information,
Yeah.
one person is always going to rise, right? And so what you're doing I just want to relieve the guilt that you're like, well, I want to go there and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you're doing the right thing because you are getting involved in the right decisions for your life and for your daughter's life.
Yeah. Thank you for that because the thing is that I was on a trajectory and I had to teach myself all of this stuff. It's like I literally had no money 10 years ago. Like 10 years ago, I had just bought a $3,000 car from like money that I just started to re-earn. I was on food stamps. Like my parents were poor. Like they had to leave El Rancho because they had no money. Like it's like I think about this and I'm just like, this is me just continuing that on. Like I went and I visited where my dad like lived in their ranch and I was like, this is like another level of poverty of like having no running water, no electricity, 11, 12 children, like, and then they come to America and they give us stability. And now we're like, okay, I have stability, but like, what does expansion look like? What does it look like to not have to work until I'm 67 and then have to limit my life to this little, like this income? Both my parents are retired and thankfully they're okay, but they don't have like tons of money. There's no way that I could retire on what they take home. And I'm just like, this is all part of it. I'm just like, well, what if me just going back to Mexico was like, this is all part of the plan? Like we expanded and like it's just such a different story. So I think I'm really trying to own that as well to say,
And do it.
yeah, it's like we didn't
It's
choose this.
your reclamation journey, and you have a program called
Yeah,
Reclamation.
reclamation.
Fits perfect.
Yeah.
I will say, keep doing what you're doing. Don't apologize for wanting to take part of the opportunities that are
Yeah.
ahead of us because there are so many. And
Yeah.
yeah, reclaim your cultura, reclaim the
Yeah.
financial inclusion access that you have to both systems.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to see what you do next. But before I let you go, as of this year, what is your definition of wealth?
My definition of wealth is choosing when and where and how I spend my time.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
So, mujeres, thank you so much for listening to the show. Make sure you give Mariela a follow. Check the link for the show notes, but you can find her at marieladelamora.com or marieladelamora.com. And we're going to tag her on all of our social media. But this mujer, as a single mom, has built so much. And I'm not just talking about the business and the amazing things that she's done, but like the growth and the expansion that I have seen over the last 5 years. So I cannot wait to see what you build wherever you go. Te mando un abrazo.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I appreciate it.